For today's practice, we're going to focus on something that I think will be helpful for many of us during this time of year. So, in my house, we are in full swing getting ready for the holiday season. And I know for many of us that can bring on some stress and some anxiety. And a lot of us hold that kind of tension in the body, especially in the low back. So, for today's practice, I'm going to focus on this area for us. And for props, Bruce Wayne is showing you, we will be using a blanket, maybe a beach towel if you don't have a yoga blanket, but something similar in shape and size to a yoga blanket. And then to get started, we're going to go ahead and use our little blanket here and maybe finding about a couple inches of cushion. So, maybe folding your towel or your beach blanket or yoga blanket and placing it at the top of the mat. And then we're going to rest the head on our blanket. And just to provide a little bit of extra support to the neck here so you can release the weight of the head. And then anything goes for the legs, anything that's comfortable. Knees can be bent. You can have the legs resting all the way down. Whatever feels good. And then once you get settled, we're going to take a few cleansing breaths together. So let go of any air that's currently in the lungs. And then take a big, deep breath in. Part the lips, take a heavy sigh out. Loud, audible exhale. We'll do that 2 more times. Big, deep inhale. Make this the biggest breath you've taken today. Part the lips, heavy sigh out. Let it go. Very good. All right, last one. We're going to hold this one at the top. Big, deep inhale. Hold it. Take in one more little sip. Part the lips, heavy sigh out. Let it go. So if it feels okay, and if you haven't already, go ahead and close the eyes. This just helps us take our focus inward, starting to allow the external world to drift away. And just checking in with you. And let's start with, where's your energy at today? How are you feeling? What kind of emotions did you carry with you onto your mat? And what's it like to be you in this moment? And greet yourself without judgment here. So allowing yourself to be exactly as you've shown up on your mat. And we do this so we can honor where we are in our practice today. So we can show up as our best possible. And let's bring this check into the body. So noticing how the body physically feels. Maybe doing a scan starting from the soles of the feet and traveling all the way up to the crown of the head. And you're looking for feedback here. So as you check in with each of these body parts, noticing any tension, noticing any tightness, maybe noticing where in the body you feel soft or open. And then just like our energetic check-in, we welcome these physical sensations of the body without judgment, allowing the body to be exactly as it's arrived today. So we know where our edges are today. So we know where we can push and where we need to back off. And then once you've finished your physical check-in, bring the awareness to your breath. Noticing your natural inhales and exhales. It might feel nice to take one hand to the heart and the other hand to the belly. And I love creating this physical contact. I feel like I'm connecting with the breath in a physical way, feeling where in the body the breath lands, maybe the chest, the belly, and then feeling the space that's created as the breath leaves the body. Maybe even start to trace the breath on the inhale as it comes through the nose. And then tracing that breath on the exhale as it leaves the body, coming out of the nose. A few more cycles of breath here. And we're going to use our Ujjayi Pranayama today for class. To set this up, you'll find a slight constriction in the back of the throat and begin breathing in and out through the nose. You'll create kind of a whisper sound with this constriction of the vocal cords. Might sound a little bit like the ocean waves crashing on the beach. Some of us may refer to this as ocean breath. And then set up a pattern of breath that you can maintain for the duration of class today. And it doesn't have to be super technical. It can just be whatever the natural rhythm is or whatever feels right in the body. But you're going to use this breath to guide the length of your movements today. And we'll use the breath to hijack the nervous system. And it helps to create calm in the body in moments of stress, and especially in those moments when the mind starts to chatter and says, this is too hard, or I'm bored. And the breath creates this ease, this steadiness for us to focus on. A couple more moments here, connecting with your breath pattern. And we're going to start to invite in some gentle movements. So let's first take the blanket and slide it out from underneath the head. And then on the inhale, we're going to draw the knees into the chest. And then the hands can wrap around the shins, maybe behind the knees. You can even hold on to the thighs here. And then your option, your choice to either hold in stillness, or you could even find a little rock from side to side. But again, honor what the body needs here. Coming back to that physical check-in that you made. So it might feel nice to massage out the low back, maybe even getting into the upper part of the back, or maybe just holding in some stillness. And if you're moving, let's go ahead and come back to center, find some stillness. And then on your exhale, we're going to take both feet to the sky. And we'll point and flex the toes, roll out the ankles, kind of some free movement here. Maybe even rotating the legs and the femur bones, our thigh bones that come into our hip, our pelvis. Any free movement. And we can keep the arms down by the side. We'll find stillness in the legs. And let's start to flex the feet and let the toes come into the body. So imagine like you're reaching the heels to the ceiling, to the sky. And then pressing into the low back here. We're trying to fire up and activate the back sides of the legs. Now you might feel a lot of sensation here, so you can even bend into the knees to make this a little bit easier, a little bit more tolerable. Now if you feel good here, you can stay here, or maybe start to draw the legs just a little bit closer. So again, keeping the feet flexed, toes coming in, and we're making this movement from our hip joint. The legs might tremble and shake a little, and that's just fine. A couple more cycles of breath. And then on the next inhale, we'll draw the knees into the chest. And again, either enjoying some stillness or maybe find a little rock from side to side again. All right, let's come back to center. We'll keep the knees bent. Plant the feet about a foot or two in front of the glutes or the hips. Arms are going to come out to the side like a T. And we're just going to find these little tick-tocks of the knees from side to side. And then see if you can sync this up with your breath. So whatever your breath pattern is, find a way to sync that up with your movement. So maybe the inhales will bring the knees up to center. The exhales will have them falling toward the earth. Or maybe the movement is a little faster and you're doing an inhale from one side to the other. And just noticing how this feels. Where are you feeling the sensations of this movement? Do you feel this in the inside of the thighs, the outer hips, the low back? Maybe you feel this in the belly. Maybe you're just experiencing the contact of the hips on the mat. And then the next time the legs fall over to the left, go ahead and let them be heavy. Release the weight of the legs to the earth. And then the gaze can stay up at the ceiling, or maybe taking the gaze out over those right fingertips. And then noticing here in the body, where do you feel effort? Where do you feel ease? And is there space where you can use your next exhale to soften? Maybe to surrender and let the body melt just a little bit deeper into this pose. On the next inhale, we'll bring everything back up through center. Find those little tick-tock of the knees from side to side again. And then the next time the legs fall over to the right, go ahead and release the weight of the legs to the earth. Allow the legs to be heavy. And then again, take the gaze to a place that feels good in the neck. So either up to the ceiling, or maybe you take them out over those left fingertips. And then our sides are different. So just noticing how you feel in this shape on this side. And is there space on the next exhale to soften and melt a little bit deeper into the mat? And on the inhale, we'll bring the knees back up through center. An option, you can either find those little tick-tocks from side to side, or maybe you need a little stillness, just to pause, taking the feet maybe out to the sides of the mat and then let the knees come in and rest on each other. Either option is fine, taking what you need, movement or stillness here. And then when you're ready, we're going to roll over onto our right hand side. And we'll pause there for just a moment. We've spent quite a bit of time on the back. Let's let the head rest on the inside of the right bicep. That left hand can rest in front of the chest. And then just notice how the back space of the body feels. Maybe enjoying this nice breath of air on the back. And then we're going to press ourselves all the way up. And we're going to meet in tabletop pose. And in our tabletop, we have shoulders stacked over wrists. Hands are about shoulder distance apart, and we have the fingertips spread wide. Index fingers are pointing to the top of the mat, and we're pressing firmly into all 10 fingers, using the full surface of the hand to support us here. And then find a lift out of the shoulders, so pressing that earth away. And then knees are stacked about below the hips and about hip distance apart. And then option toes can either be tucked or untucked here. We're going to take a few rounds of cat and cow, so just doing a little bit more to wake up the spine. On the inhale, we'll hammock the belly, tilt the sit bones behind us, and then press the earth away, press the heart forward. And finding a nice curve in the upper part of the back. So the low back has this nice natural curve to it, our lumbar spine. And so what we're trying to do here is create equal flexion in the spine. So really creating this curve now in the upper part. So we're not dumping into the low back, finding a curve in the upper part of the back. And then on the next exhale, let's press the earth away, round the spine, cat pose. Drawing the chin in toward the chest. The head can be very heavy here. Maybe taking the gaze behind you. And here's where you'll curl and tuck the low back. All right. And now we'll flow between these two poses. On the inhale, hammock the belly, tilt the sit bones behind you, pull that heart forward, cow pose. And then exhale, round the spine, push the earth away, cat pose. And then using your breath to guide this movement, inhales to cow, exhales to cat. And see if you can use the full length of the inhale to take you to the fullest expression of cow, and then the full length of the exhale to take you into the fullest expression of cat. Let's say 2 more rounds here. And after your second round of cat pose, we'll sink the hips back, let the hips rest on top of the heels. And the belly comes down, resting on top of the thighs, or maybe even taking the knees out to the sides of the mat and letting the belly rest between the legs. That might feel nice. And then arms can stay reaching out in front of you, or maybe taking the arms and allowing them to lay down along your sides, palms facing up. And if the forehead doesn't reach the earth, or if this feels uncomfortable, you can always stack fists or palms. Another nice option is also to rest onto the elbows and let the chin rest on the palms and the hands. And I like to use this as an opportunity to remind you that you can come to this pose at any time during your practice if you need a moment to pause, to reset, or to catch your breath. And if this pose doesn't feel good to you, any other pose in your practice that does, you can take that instead. So that could be coming back onto the back, or maybe on the side, or even a seated pose. Anything goes here. It's your practice. It can look however you need it to look today. All right, on the next inhale, let's take the hands back up to the top of the mat, start to press into the palms. Lift the hips up, tuck the toes, shift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. This is our first down dog of our practice today, so finding any movement to wake up this pose. So that could be bending and straightening one or both legs at a time. That could be pedaling out the feet, maybe shifting the hips from side to side, shifting forward into plank and back to down dog. But just getting some more of the blood circulated into our muscles, starting to wake up the joints a little. All right, let's bend the knees, gaze forward. On the exhale, we'll walk or step to the top of the mat, meeting in a forward fold. And let's hold this forward fold for a few cycles of breath. So we can keep a very deep bend in the knees here. The spine can round, the head can be heavy. Try and let the belly rest on top of the thighs. If that's uncomfortable, you can even take the feet a little bit wider and then let the belly come in and hang between the thighs. That might be another nice option. Maybe experiment with both and see what the body needs. And then just notice the sensations that are happening in the body. Where is there effort in this pose? Where is there ease? And is there space on that next exhale to soften and melt into this pose a little bit deeper? All right, on the next inhale, we're going to roll the spine up, meeting and standing, mountain pose at the top of the mat. Head and shoulders come up last, and then palms are facing toward the top of your mat. Oh, we finally made it to standing here. Notice how maybe there's some shifts or changes that have happened in the body. You feel this rush and circulation of blood and oxygen coming into the different muscle groups. All right, sweep the hands to the sky, upward salute. Exhale, hinging forward, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift, palms to shins, flat back. Send those sit bones behind you. So we're going to hold this pose for a couple rounds of breath too. And I want you to imagine flat back like we had in our tabletop pose. And then the tendency might be to let the spine round. So we have this rounding in the low back. But if we send the sit bones behind us, you might feel a deeper sensation in the backside of the legs. And you might not be able to fold as deep, and that's okay. So take the lift a little bit higher, and then maybe the hands will rest on top of the thighs. Or if it feels okay, you can have them rest on the shins. Or if you have the space, you can even let the hands rest down on the earth. And then slide the shoulder blades down the back. The gaze is down on the earth in front of you. Noticing where you feel this pose. Can you use an exhale breath to soften and to surrender a little deeper? On the exhale, forward fold. Let's plant the hands. We'll step the left foot all the way back, and then we'll release that left knee down onto the earth. You can untuck the toes or maybe keep the toes tucked. And then we'll inhale, reach the hands to the sky. Hands can stay reaching. If they're reaching, the fingertips are spread wide. And then we want the biceps to be reaching toward the ears. So just notice what that movement does. And if it feels there's a lot of tension or it's too tight, you have a couple options. You can even open the arms a little bit wider. But we don't want the shoulders hunching up to the ears. We want to slide those shoulder blades down. Okay. And if this feels like a lot still on the shoulders, on the arms, you can always bring hands to heart center. Maybe sinking a little bit deeper. So targeting the front side of that left leg. Starting to activate this right leg, maybe the right hip, maybe the top of that right thigh is starting to burn. All right, let's release the hands down onto the earth. And then on the exhale, start to shift the hips back, taking a half split. So arms can stay reaching. It might feel nice to start to walk the hands a little bit closer toward midline or toward the hips. And then I invite you today to experiment. So you can either keep the toes pointed or maybe flex the right foot, and then the right toes coming in toward the body. And then the spine can be round here. Maybe even letting the weight of the head go, the gaze coming behind the body. And then on the next inhale, we'll rebend into that right knee. Plant the hands to frame that right foot. Tuck the back toes, lift that left knee, and then we're going to step all the way up to the top of the mat. Forward fold again. We'll inhale, half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, chair pose. Sink the hips low, reach the hands to the sky. Now look down, see if you can see your toes. So sometimes the knees might be coming out a little bit beyond the toes. So see if you can draw those knees back. And then we want to have length in the spine. So sometimes the tendency is to create like this really deep back bend. But notice what happens if you try to create this natural length in your spine and then reaching up through the crown of the head. Maybe sinking the hips a little bit lower to create more sensation in the legs. And if you need less, you can always lift out. Okay. And then just like in our low lunge, arms can be reaching, fingertips spread wide, or you can always bring hands at heart center. All right. Come back to that breath. Inhale, sweep the hands to the sky. Exhale, hinging forward, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step both feet back, plank pose. And then on the exhale, lowering all the way down onto the belly. So I'm going to break down your first vinyasa option. Vinyasas are always optional. We're going to untuck the toes, press the tops of the feet into the mat. Hands are rested just below the shoulders. And then on the inhale, you're going to lift the chest off of the mat, pulling the heart forward. So most of this effort is happening in the upper part of the back, just like in our cow pose. So we're trying to create that equal part flexion. Now you probably feel activation, or you can feel activation in the low back. And that's just fine. That's creating support. We're creating support there. Maybe even activating these abdominal muscles to hold this pose. Really hard to breathe in this pose. All right, on the exhale, we'll tuck the toes. You can push yourself up to plank. And then exhale, shifting those hips up and back, downward facing dog. All right, bend the knees, gaze forward. On the exhale, walk or step to the top of the mat, meeting in a forward fold. Inhale, half lift, palms to shins, flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sweep the hands to the sky, upward salute. Maybe press the hips forward, maybe reaching back a little bit. Exhale, palms to touch, hands come through to heart center. Maybe close the eyes. Remember what it was like to come here the first time in our practice today. Noticing any shifts or changes that have happened in the body. Inhale, reach those hands to the sky. Exhale, hinging forward, forward fold. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step the right foot all the way back. Release that right knee down, untuck the toes. Inhale, reach the hands to the sky. And again, you can take any hand or arm variation that feels good. So keeping them reaching here, you can always bring the hands to heart center. And maybe sinking a little bit deeper, targeting the front of this right thigh. And then starting to activate and fire up these muscles here in the left leg, left thigh, left hip. Inhale, reach. Exhale, we'll plant the hands and then start to shift that hip back. And again, hands can stay reaching here, or maybe they walk in a little bit closer to the legs. And then experiment with either pointing those toes or maybe flexing that left foot and then the left toes coming in toward the body. And then the spine can fully round here. You can take the gaze behind you. A couple cycles of breath. Ollie and Bruce Wayne are here helping me today. I don't know if you can hear them breathing in the background, but it's always a wonderful reminder to me to come back to my breath. On the inhale, let's rebend into that left knee. We'll plant the hands to frame that left foot, tuck the toes, lift that right knee, and then step the right foot up to meet the left, forward fold. We'll inhale, half lift, palms to shins, flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sink the hips low, chair pose, sweep the hands to the sky. Find that length in the spine. Maybe even activating these abdominal muscles. So a cue that I like to use is imagine drawing the belly button in toward the spine. And then that helps me provide support to the low back, and that helps me find length and natural posture in my spine. Connect with the breath. This is one of those poses where the mind starts to chatter. Inhale, sweep the hands to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, palms to shins. Exhale, plant the hands, step both feet back, plank pose. And then we'll lower all the way down onto the belly. Untuck the toes, draw the elbows in toward one another. Inhale, cobra pose. Reach the heart forward. Tuck the toes, press yourself up to plank, and then shift those hips up and back, downward facing dog. Let's take a cleansing breath together. Big, deep inhale. Part the lips, heavy sigh out. Let it go. On the inhale, we'll reach the right heel to the sky. Bend the knee, open and stack the hips. Notice if you've started to shift weight, maybe over into that left hand. See if you can redistribute the weight evenly between the 3 points of contact with the earth. And then start to take that right knee around that right hip. Just opening up the hip, getting some of the synovial fluids in the joint. Switch directions. Inhale, reach the right heel to the sky. On the exhale, let's step the right foot behind the right hand. We'll spin the back foot flat, left toes pointed toward the top left corner. And you can adjust this as we come up, but let's press into the feet. Inhale, rise up, reach those hands to the sky. Again, same options for the hands. They can stay reaching here, or maybe they come to heart center. And then notice how you come into this pose. So maybe the hips feel kind of open here. And if that feels good, maybe stay there. But maybe experiment with drawing both hip points up toward the top of the mat. Keep that back leg reaching to the sky. Pressing into both feet. And then just like in our chair pose, to increase sensation of the pose, you can sink deeper into this right leg. For less, you can come out. All right. Connect with that breath. On the inhale, we'll straighten that right leg. And then exhale, folding all the way forward, coming into pyramid pose. Now you can keep a slight bend in that right knee. You can even keep a deep bend in that right knee. But you want to avoid hyperflexing that knee. So we want to protect this knee joint. So finding some balance in that joint to protect the joint. And then the hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable. So maybe they rest on the earth. Maybe they rest a little bit higher somewhere on the leg, maybe the thigh, maybe the calf. But the spine is round. And again, take that gaze behind you. See if you can make the head heavy, even heavier. And that back foot is flat. So if that heel is lifting up, see if you can make an adjustment so that you can keep that left heel down, resting on the earth. All right, start to bend into that right knee. We're going to plant the hands at the top of the mat. We'll bend into that left knee and then step the left foot up behind that left hand. We'll inhale, half lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sweep the hands to the sky. Exhale, hands come to heart center. Let's turn the toes out toward the outside edges of the mat. And I'm going to face you. You guys can see my feet. And we'll take another inhale. And then exhale, start to sink the hips down. So we're coming into Malasana, Yogi squat. But I want us to keep this an active squat. Okay, so we're going to have some effort here. So just think deep chair pose with the legs wide, toes pointed out. And then you can experiment. Maybe toes pointed forward feels better for you and the body. Maybe taking the feet out even wider, or even a narrower squat. Whatever feels good for you. Experiment with that here. I know your legs are burning, mine are too. All right, on the exhale, plant the hands, shift the hips up. Oh, find a little release here. All right, and I'm going to mirror you. So taking the right hand to the right hip, and then the left hand is going to reach over to that right foot. And then on the exhale, we're going to twist and open to the right. Exhale, come back to center. Switch sides, taking now that left hand to the left hip, and then right hand to the left foot. And then on the exhale, twist and open to the left. Exhale, come back to center. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step both feet back, plank pose. And then on the exhale, lowering all the way down onto the belly. Might be time to put the hair back. All right. So we've been working Cobra pose. If that has been feeling good for you, you can continue to work Cobra. Hands rested underneath the shoulders here, pressing into the tops of the feet, elbows come in. Inhale to lift up. Now, if you feel strong here, maybe letting the hands hover off of the mat. You may also want to experiment with reaching the hands behind, fingertips pointed behind you, lifting with the chest. I always feel like this reach helps me get a little bit more reach, a little bit more lift. And then exhale, plant the hands, tuck the toes, press yourself up to plank, and shift the hips up and back, downward facing dog. All right, let's get that all on the other side. Inhale, reach the left heel to the sky. Bend the knee, open and stack the hip. Notice if you've started to shifted weight between one hand or the other, see if you can find a balance of the weight between the 3 points of contact with the earth, and start to rotate that left knee around that left hip. And switching directions. Inhale, reach the left heel to the sky. Exhale, step the left the left foot behind the left hand. We'll spin that back foot flat, right toes pointed toward the top right corner of the mat. Start to press into both feet, and then on the inhale, rise up, reaching those hands to the sky. Warrior one, Virabhadrasana one. And then again, noticing where the hips have landed in this pose. So maybe the natural tendency is to come into this with the hips open, but see what happens if you draw both hip points up toward the top of the mat. And then maybe activating that back leg a little bit more, reaching that right thigh to the sky. And then you control the depth of this pose. So sinking deeper into that left knee is going to intensify the pose. Lifting up might make it a little bit easier. So honor what the body needs today. And then again, hands can come at heart center. Maybe they can be reaching to the sky. Connect with the breath. Let's bring hands to heart center. On the inhale, start to straighten that left leg. And then on the exhale, pyramid pose, Folding all the way forward, spine is round. And again, taking an option for that left leg. So the knee can be bent. You can even have a deep bend in the knee. Just to avoid hyperextending where we're trying to protect this little joint here. And then hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable, maybe on the earth, on the calf, on the thigh. Connecting with the breath. Let's rebend into that left knee. We'll plant both hands at the top of the mat and then step the right foot up behind that right hand. So we're in this wide leg forward fold. Let's hold and dangle here for a moment. So again, letting the spine round. You can keep a deep bend in the knees. And you'll notice as you straighten the knees, it may increase the sensations that are happening in the backside of the body, behind the legs, maybe even up into the spine and the back. And then hands can stay resting on the earth or maybe taking ragdoll pose. So grabbing onto opposite elbows. This may create some additional traction in the torso. Maybe feeling a deeper pull with the upper part of the body reaching toward the earth. And releasing the hands. On your next inhale, we'll take a half lift with the feet and legs wide, palms to shins, flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, we'll sink the hips low. Let's take a chair pose here. Sweeping those hands to the sky. And hands can come to heart center. Find the activation of those abdominal muscles here. Grow long in the spine. Connect with the breath. The body is stronger than the mind wants you to think. Let the legs tremble. Let the legs shake. Maybe sink a little bit deeper. Inhale, sweep the hands to the sky. Exhale, hinging forward, forward fold. Inhale, half lift, palms to shins. Exhale, plant the hands at the top. Step both feet back, the plank pose, and then lowering all the way down onto the belly. Now again, you can take any of those previous options, cobra, or maybe reaching the hands behind, or even adding on maybe. So to add on, we'll find pressing into the tops of the feet. Now start to press the pelvis forward. So you might feel the pubic bone pressing into the mat. And then on the inhale, lift the chest off the mat. Now hands can stay resting. They can stay floating. Maybe you reach those hands back. Maybe start to bend into the knees. Maybe your arms and legs are long enough. You might be able to reach and hold on to the tops of the feet or maybe the ankles. Now, if you find that reach, re-engage that lift. Find the lift of the chest. And then maybe press the feet, the heels into the hands. Breathe here. I know it's a challenge. On the exhale, very gently, release and lower back down. Let go of the feet. You can tuck the toes, take the hands under the shoulders, and then press the earth away, coming into your plank pose as you transition back to downward facing dog. All right, let's take a cleansing breath, big, deep inhale in. Part the lips, heavy sigh out, let it go. All right, We'll bend the knees, gaze forward. On the exhale, step the feet to the top of the mat and then sit your sweet little booty down. All right, and this is where we're going to grab our blanket again. So it should be in the same shape unless you've used it throughout your practice today. But we want a couple inches of lift here. And so we're going to do a little experiment. So we're going to come onto first, we're going to place the blanket underneath the hips. So we kind of want to be on the edge of the blanket. We don't want the full bottom to be on the blanket. We kind of want to be on the edge of the blanket. And this helps create like a little tilt with the pelvis. Okay. And then we're going to take the legs long in front of us. And we're going to take a seated forward fold. Feet are flexed, toes are coming into the body. And you'll notice the tops of my thighs like to get involved right away as soon as I start to activate my feet. But see if you can just release the tops of the legs. And then we'll inhale, sweep the hands to the sky. Keep the spine straight here. And then exhale, hinge forward and pause. So we're going to take this active first. I'll give you an option here to make this passive. And then let the hands rest anywhere that's comfortable on the earth or maybe on the legs. But keep that spine long, just like in our chair pose, finding length in the spine. Maybe even experiment with activating those abdominal muscles here because this is active. Noticing how that feels. Maybe using the hands on the earth to create a little contact and pull the heart forward a little bit more. Notice where you feel this. And then on your next exhale, you can round the spine, folding the belly in, forehead reaches down toward the knees, and the hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable. And if this doesn't feel good with the legs and feet together, you can even step the feet out a little bit wider. Maybe experiment with that today too. Noticing how that changes. Still keep the feet flexed and the toes coming in. This is one of those poses, in my opinion, in the yoga world, where people think that they have to, in order to properly do this pose, they have to touch their toes. And I'm here to tell you, yoga is not about what it looks like. It's about what it feels like. And so each of us are shaped different. We have different anatomy, different muscular, skeletal structures. So it would be impossible for all of our shapes to look the same. So how does this pose feel? How does this shape feel for you in your body? On the next inhale, we'll walk the hands back in, assist the torso upright. And then let's bend the knees. We'll plant the feet about a foot or two in front of the hips. Take the hands behind the hips here. And then just find a little tick-tock of the knees from side to side. Okay, so step 2 of our experiment, we're going to remove that blanket. I'm going to set that aside. And then taking the feet down the length of the mat again. And so we're going to do that same thing, the same first option with the active forward fold, and then we'll release into it passively. But you might even feel right here, so with the feet flexed, toes coming in toward the body, relaxing the tops of the thighs, but you may already feel maybe in your hip flexors, maybe there's tightness in the low back and in the hips. So you might even feel already how this is very different or offers a different experience than using the blanket. Inhale, reach the hands to the sky. Keep the spine long, hinge forward and pause. Let the hands come down and rest. And notice how this shape feels. Maybe you feel it a little differently than you did with the assistance of the prop underneath the hips. Or maybe it feels exactly the same, just noticing there is no wrong. And then on the exhale, go ahead and round the spine, letting the forehead come in toward the legs. And then again, hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable. And again, this can be very constricting. So you could even take the feet to the outside edges of the mat and then experiment with making this a little wider forward fold. Letting the belly come in toward the thighs. Just notice how this shape feels without your prop. Noticing where you are feeling effort here. Where's the body holding on? And can you use your next exhale breath to soften and melt a little deeper into this pose? On the next inhale, we'll walk the hands back in toward the body, assisting the torso upright. And then to counter that movement again, you can bend the knees, tick-tock the knees from side to side. It might even feel nice to take another little forward folding option. So wrapping the arms around the shins and then letting the forehead come in and rest toward the knees. It might feel nice. If the forehead doesn't actually rest and release, you can even rest the forehead on top of the fists, maybe even the forearms. These forward folds are opportunities for introspection and self-reflection. So maybe just looking at anything that's come up for you in your practice today. And then when you're ready, we're going to meet on our backs. So just rolling on back. And we can keep the knees bent. And let's take that broken bridge again. So take the feet to the outside edges of the mat and let the knees come in and rest toward one another. And hands can rest anywhere that's comfortable, maybe someplace on the torso, and come down along the side. Might feel nice to reach the arms up and overhead. Let's walk the feet in a little bit, keeping the knees bent. We're going to cross the right ankle over the left thigh. Right foot is flexed. And then see if you can open up that right hip a little bit more by drawing that right knee toward the top of the mat. Might even be helpful to press that right knee with the right hand. Notice how that feels. And then see if you can keep that right knee open, keeping the right foot flexed. Let's bring the arms out to the side like a T. And then on the exhale, let the legs fall over to the left. Now I'm going to give you a few different options here. So just notice how you feel as you've landed in this shape. And then let's take the left hand and we're going to press on the inside of the right knee. We're going to gently press that right knee forward. Notice how that might change the sensations of this pose. And then reach behind the right knee And then pull the right knee toward the body. Notice how that feels. And then between those three options, the way you've landed, pressing forward, or pulling toward you, take the option that feels best for you. So what of those three options does the body need today? And then the gaze can be up at the ceiling or maybe out over those right fingertips. A couple more cycles of breath here. Still staying connected to the breath. As we've approached this passive part of our practice, this is when the mind likes to wander, but this is where the magic really starts to show up. So this is when the breath becomes even more important to keep us tethered here to this moment. On the next inhale, we'll bring the knees back up through center. We'll uncross that right ankle and then switch sides, crossing the left ankle over the right thigh. Flex that left foot and then maybe draw that left knee a little bit further open, opening up that left hip. And then when you're ready, on the exhale, taking the legs over to the right. And then noticing how you've landed here in this shape. And I'm still going to invite you to experiment with these three options on this side. Our sides are different, so sometimes what we need is going to look a little different than what we did on the other side. So with the right hand, press on the inside of that left knee forward. And then reach behind that left knee and pull that leg toward the body. And then between those three options, taking the option that you need on this side. Come back to the breath. On the next inhale, bring the legs back up through center. We'll uncross that left leg. And then any final movement before your final resting pose. If you want to tuck the knees, maybe find an Apanasana, knees to the chest, and rock from side to side again. And then I'm going to invite you to use your blanket one more time. So if you really liked the blanket underneath the neck to provide some support, you can do that again. Or maybe experiment with rolling up the blanket and then placing it underneath the knees or the really bottom part of the thighs. And then take the legs kind of out wide. Maybe feet come off the mat, come out to the sides. Let the feet open. And then arms come down by the side. Maybe lift up the chest and nestle the shoulder blades a little bit closer together. Backs of the hands are resting on the earth and the palms are open. Let the chin come toward the chest. Close the eyes. And let's come back to that physical scan that we did at the beginning of our practice today. Starting from the soles of the feet, coming all the way up to the crown of the head, and looking for feedback as you check in with each of these different body parts, noticing tension, noticing any tightness. Notice where the body feels soft and open. And can you use the next exhale to soften any of that tension and melt into your Shavasana? Start to invite in some gentle movement, maybe wiggling fingers and toes. Might feel nice to take a little rock of the head from side to side. And you are welcome to stay just as you are and take additional time in your Shavasana. If you would like to finish with me in a seat, you can make your way onto a side and just pause there first for a moment, noticing how the body feels. And then in your time, pressing yourself up and taking any comfortable seat that feels good for you. If it makes sense for you in your practice to bring hands at heart center, you can join me for Anjali Mudra. I consider it a great honor and privilege to share my practice with you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to guide you in practice today. The light in me truly sees and honors the light in each and every one of you. Namaste.